We always try to do something slightly different for the shows, but I mean, given that we haven't ever played here before, I kind of want to represent it faithfully for the new audience so that they can see what we've been doing for the last year or so on the Awake tour. So it'll be pretty faithful to the Awake tour production. I mean, I think the complexity of the song in a lot of ways, especially the drums, was the biggest challenge for me, like a technical challenge. It was the first time I had recorded and arranged live drums in that way, whereas like a lot of songs, it's more like I would record live drums, but then I'd make it into a break, and it was just kind of a loop, like on Awake. Whereas Montana is just basically a fully live drum take, just one long take. It's actually two long takes stacked over each other. And then also, it's almost kind of like a prog rock song kind of thing. So it definitely doesn't follow a lot of the conventions of the songs I made before that were kind of more tied to electronic type stuff I'd done in the past. So in a couple ways, it was kind of breaking new ground, and it was something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So it was a learning experience for sure. Yeah, very happy. I mean, there's always things that you go back and you listen and you said, oh, maybe I could have done this differently. But I've been learning slowly to kind of accept things for what they are and say that album was a time and a place, and the way that it turned out that's the way it's always going to be, and there's no need to go back and it's almost like there isn't really anything I changed, even though I can recognize things about it that I'm not completely happy with. I realize that's kind of what makes it good, is that it just is what it is, and you have to let it be. Yeah, it's some of the beauty of it is the things that I would call failings or imperfections are actually sometimes what makes it what it is, and that's what I've realized too, is a lot of people, they hear those things and they actually think, oh, that's interesting, or that's something I like, whereas you just hear all the little issues. So yeah, you just have to accept it, I think. I think it's hard to say, just because I know that there's always, when you're making anything and you spend that much time and energy on something, there's going to be some component of your current situation and the things around you, your environment, they're going to make their way into it. But for me, the source of inspiration that I draw from is kind of a time. It's not tied to any space or time. It's kind of just this vague idea or this vague vision, or sometimes a very specific vision. So for me, it's not like, oh, I'm going to make a song that's like evocative of being at the ocean 2 weeks ago when I really whatever. I think I just see those things as fuel over time. You have all these little experiences, and those just go in, and that they inspire you to do something. But then when you finally do something, I think usually, at least for me, you're drawing on a much longer continuum of, an arc of ideas as opposed to little specific moments. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I don't have any influence. I definitely have big influences, like Boards of Canada and Ulrich Schnaus, but I see those more as seeds. Those are things that I was into, in like 2000. The year 2000 was kind of when I really decided that I wanted to start seriously making music, and those were the two bands that really kind of informed the sonic space that I wanted to occupy. So I think, but then after that, I've never really been like part of a scene, or like been like, I'm going to make trap music this year, or I'm going to make house music or whatever. It's just kind of like I'm still just drawing from those inspirations and turning them into whatever it is that I feel like is my own personal vision. So yeah, in that respect, I don't think I'm tied to anything, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to be influenced by the world at large and the things that are hitting you. But just in general, I don't really consume a lot of electronic music, and I'm not really up on it, so I guess it doesn't affect me as much as maybe like a lot of current trends in rock or something like that. Matthew Deere and Dabri were definitely a couple of, and Midwest Product were a few of the artists who originally got me interested in Ghostly. But these days, I really like Com Truise and Luzine and Shigeto, and there's a lot of artists on Ghostly that I really respect and think are doing really interesting things in this space right now. I don't think it's not like either thing is influencing the other. They just are part of the same vision. ISO 50 was just the name that I used to encompass the visual work for a long time because I was a professional graphic artist, and I was trying to basically build a company because that's how I made my living at the time. But I never liked the idea of the music and the visual art being separated. It was just kind of a necessary thing to make a brand and make a company out of. And so once I stopped doing that professionally and just focused on music, I've kind of stopped using that as much. So now, I just think of Tycho as the umbrella that contains all the work, whether it's the video or the graphic design or the photography or the music. It's just all one thing. So for me, ISO 50 is more of, it's kind of a past thing. I think of it as my growth phase, as learning and becoming a professional artist and learning how to do art professionally, because that was the first time I'd ever done it. And with music, I was just doing it for fun. So that kind of set the stage for me to be able to do music professionally. So that was what it was. Dive. Yeah, so like I had been doing dive. I just kind of did in the background I worked on it for like 5 years here and there when I had time, and then after about 4 years, I was like, okay, there's all these songs here. I should probably do something with this. But I never thought I'd be doing it for a living. I was just a graphic designer, and that was what I did in my spare time. So then I spent a year, but that 5th year, I quit my job, and I just said, might as well give this one shot while I'm young. And yeah, I spent that year finishing the record, and then that came out, and really nothing happened for like 6 months. It was just kind of like silence. And then all of a sudden, it was weird. Like 6 months later, started getting all these offers to play shows, and we just Zach and I kind of created like this live production and got a drummer and everything, and started working with Rory. And yeah, that's when it just kind of got out of our control, and we just started playing more and more shows, and it was like, okay, I guess this is what we do for a living now. It just kind of happened by accident. I'm working on a record right now, and I'm hoping to have it done pretty soon. So it should be out in 2016, but you can never predict like record label and timelines and all that stuff. So I'm really hoping that it'll be done and ready to be out in 2016. But even if it isn't, I should be done with it in the spring, and then we'll probably tour a little bit next year. No, absolutely. I mean, I think I've always had ambitions to do this, and I've always wanted to play around the world and try to expose the music to as many people as possible. But never in my wildest dreams did I actually believe that was true. It was just kind of like this hopeful vision that I had, and now to see it come to fruition is it's pretty surreal. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's awesome. I'm always most comfortable in the studio. I'm definitely not really a natural performer. It's a difficult thing for me, and it's something I've definitely had to learn. But I've learned to really enjoy it, especially once we started playing as a band with everybody up there. I think that made it a lot more enjoyable to be up there and to feed off of the other guys instead of it just being me. This is Scott from Tycho, and you can catch me on radiomusic.com.